Hello everyone, welcome to the last topic in nouns. Today we will speak about subject-verb agreement. First, we are going to briefly define what subject-verb agreement is. It is a concordance that has to exist between the subject and the verb in a sentence in terms of number. In other words, singular subjects take singular verbs and plural subjects take plural verbs. The basic rules of agreement are the following, and please pay attention to each of them because they are going to contain an example. In the present simple, if the subject of the sentence is a third person singular, that is to say he, she, or it, the verb takes a final S in positive statements. In negative statements and questions, the auxiliary does has to be used. Number 2. Compound subject. A compound subject is when two nouns are joined with and they take a plural verb. Number 3. Splitted subject and verb. The presence of a clause or phrase after the subject does not change agreement. Basically, you need to discover which is the real subject in the sentence. For example, if I say the block of apartments, the block of is going to be the subject, and then I need to use a singular verb in the sentence. For example, the block of apartments is not far from here. Number 4. The gerund. Gerunds always take a singular verb. What is a gerund? The gerund is a verb form and not a verb. It is formed by adding a final ing to a verb, and it functions as a noun in the sentence. That is to say that it can be either the subject or the direct object in a sentence. For example, reading is my passion. In this case, reading is going to be the subject, and thus it needs the singular verb, and I enjoy reading. Reading is being used as the direct object. It is not the same as the present participle. Remember that the present participle is part of progressive tenses. The present participle needs an auxiliary verb to complete its meaning, whereas the gerund does not need any kind of verb before it. Number 5. Each and every. They are always followed by a singular noun, and even if there are two nouns joined by and, the verb must be in the singular. Subject-verb agreement is especially relevant when it comes to quantifiers and quantity expressions. Why? Because depending on the quantifier, countable or uncountable nouns can be used, and depending on this, you have to determine the correct form of the verb. A quantifier is an expression used to count or measure, in this case, an uncountable noun, typically. The correct choice of quantifiers depends on the meaning, that is to say, it can have either a positive meaning or a negative meaning. Number 2, the type of noun, that is to say, whether it is countable or uncountable. And finally, the level of formality. We will divide quantifiers in 4 big categories, and we are also going to characterize each of them. So please pay attention to the rules and also to the different examples you will be presented. Okay? In this case, we are not going to provide examples of sentences, but simple examples of phrases that you can find for each of the quantifiers. So let's start with large quantity. In the case of large quantity, we can find, for example, several. Several is used with plural countable nouns in positive statements. Much is used with uncountables in questions and in negatives. Many is used for countables in questions and also in negatives. We can also vary this with too much or too many. Too much and too many have a negative meaning. They mean more than I want or more than needed, and they are used in positive statements. We can also have plenty of, which is used plus plural countables or uncountables in positive statements. Plenty of has a positive meaning. This means more than I need, but again with a positive meaning. A lot of is used plus plural countables or also uncountables in positive statements. In the case of small quantity, which is the second category, we can have a few or few, a little or a little, which we have already discussed in the previous class. And also we are going to find a bit of, which is informal, and it is used with uncountable in positive statements. As regards zero quantity, we can find no, which is used plus countables and uncountables in affirmative sentences, also positive sentences. None of, which is used with plural countable nouns in positive statements, and any, which is used with plural countables or uncountables and in questions and negatives. Finally, the last group is whole and part quantifiers. In this case, we are going to find all, which is used plus the and plural countables in affirmatives, most, which is used with uncountables or plural countables in affirmative sentences, some, which is used with plural countables or uncountables in questions and affirmative sentences, each and every. Each means one by one in a group, and every means all together in one group. Both of them are followed by singular countable nouns in affirmative sentences only. Enough means just the quantity I need, and it is used with countable or uncountable nouns in affirmative, negative sentences or also in questions. Moving on, both is used with plural countables in affirmative statements. Have is used also with plural countables in affirmative sentences. And finally, we have either or neither nor. Either or means one or the other, and neither nor means nor one or not the other. In the case you come across with this structure, they are going to take either the singular or the plural verb depending on the subject after or after nor. In the case you are using either or neither on their own, that is to say without or and nor, you have to follow them always by a singular countable noun and not uncountables and not plurals. Finally, there are 4 special cases to be mentioned in the regard of subject-verb agreement. Number 1, 2 nouns joined with and can be considered as a single unity in some cases and take a singular verb. Have a look at the example below. Number 2, the number of and a number of. In the structure the number of, we are using the number of as the subject, and thus it needs a singular verb. In the case we are using a number of, it is a quantifier, and thus it is followed by a plural verb and also by a plural noun. Compare the examples below. Number 3, specific expressions of quantity, that is to say, for example, some of, a lot of, most of, or many of, depend on the noun to take a verb either in the singular or in the plural. So pay attention to the last part, not to the quantifier, but to the noun they are modifying. And finally, one of, each of, and every one of are always followed by singular verbs, even if they are followed by a plural noun. This was everything for today. I hope this has been useful. Please, a final remark. Remember that you are not going to be tested and in all the quantifiers that we have mentioned. The main idea behind subject-verb agreement is that you recognize the subjects in your sentences, the type of noun, that is to say whether it is countable or uncountable, so that you can adapt the verb to make the sentence correct. Okay? So do not worry, there are a lot of quantifiers and there are a lot of exceptions that we have not mentioned and we are not going to mention, but please focus your attention on the subject of the sentence and not so much in the quantifier or correctness in terms of quantifiers. Thank you for your attention.